The rain had just begun to fall in the quiet town of Willowbrook, the droplets tapping against the window pane of a small house where a boy named Arjun sat alone, staring into the distance. The world outside looked gray, but inside his chest was an even heavier storm. He had always been a quiet soul, a dreamer who found comfort in stories and the whispers of the wind, but he often felt like life forgot to give him a true companion. His days were filled with school, chores, and the humdrum repetition of life. Yet in his heart there was always a hollow space waiting to be filled. It was on one such evening, while the clouds rolled and the air carried the scent of wet soil, that destiny chose to answer his silent longing in the form of a trembling little puppy, drenched in the rain, abandoned at his doorstep. Arjun opened the door to the sound of soft whimpers, his eyes widening as he saw the small creature shivering, its fur sticking to its fragile frame. Without hesitation, he scooped the puppy into his arms, feeling its heartbeat racing against his chest. That simple touch created a bond so profound it seemed written in the fabric of the universe. Arjun whispered gently, "Don't worry, you're safe now." The puppy, as if it understood, licked his fingers with desperate gratitude. That night, with a blanket wrapped around both of them, Arjun felt something he had never known before. He wasn't alone anymore. The hollow space in his heart had begun to glow with warmth, and in that glow a story of love and loyalty was born. He named the puppy Milo, because to him it sounded soft and kind, like the way the little one nestled into his arms. From that day on, Arjun and Milo became inseparable, two souls tied together by fate. Every morning Milo's excited bark would wake him up, and every night the little dog would curl at his feet as though guarding his dreams. In a world where Arjun often felt unseen, Milo made him feel important, as though his existence mattered. They played in the fields, shared secret hideouts by the old oak tree, and even sat together in silence, watching sunsets that painted the sky in colors of hope. Arjun began to smile more, laugh louder, and dream bigger, because Milo had taught him the simple truth. Sometimes friendship doesn't need words. It needs only a heart that listens. But life, as it always does, carried both joy and trials. Arjun's family was not wealthy, and the little house often echoed with worries about money, bills, and survival. There were days when food was scarce, but no matter how little they had, Arjun always saved a portion for Milo, never letting his friend go hungry. His parents often told him, "Dogs bring responsibility," but to Arjun, Milo wasn't a responsibility. He was family, the truest part of his heart. Together, they weathered storms of hardship, and in each trial, their bond grew stronger. Milo seemed to sense every sadness Arjun carried, pressing his head into his friend's lap whenever tears threatened to fall, reminding him silently that he was not alone in his struggles. Years began to weave themselves quietly into their story. Arjun grew taller, older, more aware of the world's harsh edges, but Milo never changed in the way he loved. His fur turned glossier, his eyes brighter, and his loyalty deeper. The townspeople began to notice them, boy and dog, always side by side, as if they were one being split into two forms. "That dog will never leave you," an old shopkeeper once said to Arjun, smiling knowingly. And Arjun believed it, because when Milo looked at him, there was a trust so pure it seemed eternal. Each day became a memory carved into the walls of his soul, and though he didn't realize it then, those memories were becoming the foundation of the story that would define his life. One summer afternoon, as golden sunlight poured across the meadows, Arjun and Milo chased each other through the tall grass. Arjun fell breathless into the earth, laughing harder than he had in months, while Milo barked and circled him with uncontainable joy. At that moment, Arjun thought to himself, "This is happiness. Simple, unshaken happiness." He didn't need riches, fame, or anything the world promised. All he needed was the sound of Milo's paws and the warmth of his loyal presence. He whispered into the breeze, "You're my best friend, Milo. My only real friend." Milo, lying beside him, placed a paw over Arjun's chest as if sealing a sacred vow. and the boy closed his eyes, feeling tears of gratitude form. But as every story holds shadows, theirs too began to meet moments of darkness. Arjun's schoolmates often teased him for being the boy who only talks to his dog, mocking the way he spent more time with Milo than with people. The sting of their words hurt, but Milo's love healed the wound each time. When Arjun sat alone under the oak tree, nursing his quiet pain, Milo pressed close, licking away the sadness as if to say, "You'll always have me." It was in these moments that Arjun realized true friendship isn't measured by numbers. It is measured by depth, loyalty, and the ability to stand by someone when the world chooses to walk away. As Arjun entered his teenage years, responsibilities grew heavier, but Milo never let him feel crushed under their weight. When Arjun studied late at night by the flickering bulb, Milo lay patiently at his feet. When exhaustion threatened to break him, Milo nudged his hand, grounding him back into strength. Together, they became each other's safe place, their hearts beating in harmony with an unspoken promise. In Milo's eyes, Arjun found the courage to dream of a better tomorrow, and in Arjun's love, Milo found the joy of belonging, a joy every soul, human or animal, longs for. There were times when Arjun wondered if fate had sent Milo for a reason larger than companionship. He believed that somewhere beyond the stars, someone had heard his unspoken cries for a friend and answered them with this four-legged angel. For Milo was not just a dog, he was a guardian, a teacher, a healer of wounds too deep for words. Through him, Arjun learned patience, kindness, sacrifice, and the quiet strength of unconditional love. It was as if the universe whispered, "Here, take this soul. He will teach you what it means to love from the heart." And so, the story of boy and dog became not just friendship, but destiny itself. On the night of Arjun's 16th birthday, the house was quiet, with no grand celebrations or lavish gifts, but Milo's presence made it enough. Arjun sat with a small slice of cake, breaking off a piece and offering it to his friend who wagged his tail happily. As he looked into Milo's eyes glowing under the dim light, Arjun made a silent vow. "No matter what happens, I will always take care of you, just as you have taken care of me." And in that sacred moment, a bond deeper than blood was sealed. A bond that would be tested by time, challenged by fate, but never broken. Arjun's 16th birthday passed quietly, but the promise he had made to Milo that night remained etched into his heart like scripture carved in stone. Life after that evening seemed to move faster, pulling him toward adulthood with its silent but relentless tide. School grew harder, family responsibilities became heavier, and the weight of expectations pressed down on his young shoulders. Yet no matter how suffocating the days became, Milo was always there, a constant in a world of uncertainties. When Arjun felt like giving up on assignments or doubting his worth, Milo would nuzzle his hand or rest his head on his lap, and the simple warmth of that gesture reminded him that he wasn't fighting alone. Seasons changed, painting Willowbrook with different colors, but one thing remained unchanging: the rhythm of friendship between boy and dog. In spring, they ran across fields of blooming flowers, Milo chasing butterflies while Arjun laughed till his sides ached. In summer, they cooled themselves by the river, with Milo splashing happily and Arjun pretending to scold him for getting him wet. Autumn brought quiet walks under golden leaves, the crunch of their footsteps harmonizing with the whispers of the wind. Winter wrapped the town in silence, but even in the harsh cold, Milo's fur and warmth made Arjun's nights bearable. Each season stitched itself into their shared story, as if the earth itself acknowledged their bond. But as Arjun stepped into the cusp of adulthood, he began to notice subtle changes in his companion. Milo no longer ran as fast as he once did, and his breaths grew heavier after play. His once glossy fur showed the first signs of age, and his once energetic leaps turned into slower, careful movements. Arjun tried to brush away the fear building in his heart, convincing himself that Milo was simply tired, that nothing could ever harm the friend who had been his anchor through everything. Still, deep inside, a quiet dread began to whisper, reminding him that even the brightest flames one day burn slower. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Arjun sat with Milo under the oak tree, the same tree where they had shared countless memories. He watched his friend rest, eyes half closed, ears twitching gently to the song of the crickets. Arjun reached out and stroked his head, whispering, "You've given me everything, Milo. I don't know what I would be without you." Milo opened his eyes, looking at him with a depth that felt almost human, as if to say, "I'll always be with you, no matter what." Tears welled in Arjun's eyes, though he quickly blinked them away, unwilling to let the fear of losing his friend steal the peace of that moment. In the months that followed, Arjun took even greater care of Milo, ensuring he was fed well, loved deeply, and comforted always. When Milo struggled to climb stairs, Arjun lifted him gently, whispering encouragement. When his barks grew softer, Arjun leaned closer to hear them, treating each sound as precious. His friends at school could never understand why he spoke of Milo with such devotion, but Arjun didn't need them to. He knew what Milo had given him: love without condition, presence without demand, loyalty without question. And that was more than any human friendship had ever offered. One winter morning, the frost covering the ground sparkled like diamonds, but Arjun barely noticed the beauty. Milo had fallen ill, his strength waning, his steps unsteady. Arjun carried him in his arms to the small veterinary clinic, praying silently, his heart pounding with fear. The doctor, an elderly man with kind eyes, examined Milo carefully and said gently, "He's aging, son. All you can do now is make him comfortable, give him love, and cherish the time you have." Arjun's throat tightened, his hands trembling as he stroked Milo's fur. He wanted to scream at fate, to demand more years, but he couldn't. All he could do was hold Milo closer and whisper, "I'm here, always." Despite the shadow of fear, Arjun tried to make every day a celebration of their bond. He took Milo on short walks when possible, cooked his favorite meals, and spent hours simply sitting by his side, talking to him as though the little dog understood every word. And in truth, Milo seemed to understand more than any human ever could. Even in his weakness, his eyes sparkled with love whenever Arjun was near. It was as if he was telling his friend, "Don't be sad, Arjun. You gave me a life full of love. That is enough." One night, the stars shone brighter than usual, blanketing Willowbrook in a silence so profound that it felt sacred. Arjun lay beside Milo, their breaths sinking like they had so many times before. He whispered stories of their adventures, the games, the fields, the laughter, the promises, and Milo listened, his head resting gently against Arjun's chest. "You are my heart, Milo," Arjun said, voice breaking. "You're more than a friend. You're my family, my everything." Milo's tail moved faintly and his eyes closed in peace. Arjun held him tighter, wishing the night would never end. The following morning, the sun rose softly, but Arjun's world had changed forever. Milo had passed in the stillness of dawn, his final breath leaving as gently as the whisper of wind. Arjun woke to silence so heavy it shattered him. He clutched Milo's still body, tears pouring like rain, his heart breaking in ways he had never imagined possible. "No, no, you can't leave me," he cried, his voice raw with grief. But there was no bark in reply, no wagging tail, no heartbeat pressed against his chest. The hollow space that Milo had once filled now yawned open again, but this time it was filled with unbearable pain. The days that followed felt empty. Every corner of the house carried memories of Milo: the paw prints on the floor, the chew marks on old furniture, the blanket where he once slept. Arjun couldn't bring himself to pack anything away because letting go felt like betrayal. The oak tree, once a place of joy, became a silent monument of grief. Yet even in sorrow, Arjun felt Milo's presence in subtle ways: a sudden breeze when he was crying, a soft warmth when he felt most alone, dreams where Milo ran freely through endless fields. Slowly, Arjun began to understand that though Milo's body was gone, his spirit remained forever etched in his heart. The grief Arjun carried was heavier than any burden he had known. But in the quiet spaces between tears, he began to hear Milo's voice echoing in his heart. It wasn't a bark or a sound, but a feeling, an unspoken reminder that love doesn't vanish with death. It transforms. Some nights Arjun sat under the oak tree staring at the stars, whispering, "Are you up there, Milo? Do you see me?" The wind would brush against his face softly, and in that moment he felt as if Milo was answering, "I never left. I'm with you. Always." This realization became the first fragile thread of healing, weaving hope into his brokenness. As weeks passed, the world around Arjun moved on, though his heart was still wrapped in sorrow. Friends and neighbors offered words of comfort, but none could touch the depth of the void Milo's absence left. People would say, "He was just a dog," but those words stung like poison. To Arjun, Milo wasn't just a dog. He was his anchor, his confidant, his companion through the darkest storms. And so, when people couldn't understand, Arjun stopped explaining. He chose instead to carry Milo's love quietly, like a secret flame burning within him, small, steady, unshakable. One afternoon, as Arjun walked through Willowbrook with heavy steps, he noticed another stray dog lingering near the market. The dog was thin, ribs showing, eyes weary from a life of neglect. For a moment Arjun froze, the image so painfully similar to the day he had first found Milo. His chest tightened, tears threatening, but then something stirred inside him, compassion stronger than grief. Kneeling down, he reached out gently, whispering, "Hey, you're safe." The dog hesitated, then slowly inched closer, drawn by the kindness in his voice. At that instant, Arjun understood. Though Milo was gone, the love he left behind was meant to be shared. Bringing the stray home wasn't easy. His parents worried about the expenses, the responsibilities, the possibility of reopening wounds too soon. But Arjun was determined. "I can't turn him away," he pleaded. "Milo found me when I was alone. Now it's my turn to do the same." Seeing the fire in their son's eyes, his parents finally relented. The stray was given food, warmth, and a name, Shiro. Though different in appearance and temperament from Milo, Shiro carried the same quiet gratitude, the kind only those who had suffered abandonment could understand. Slowly, Arjun realized that opening his heart to Shiro didn't replace Milo. It honored him. As days turned into months, Shiro's health improved, and so did Arjun's spirit. He discovered that healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about transforming love into action. Every time Shiro wagged his tail or looked at him with trust, Arjun felt Milo's spirit smiling somewhere, proud of the choice he had made. He began volunteering at the town's small shelter, helping other abandoned animals find homes, spreading the love Milo had taught him. Each rescued dog, each grateful pair of eyes, felt like another thread of Milo's legacy woven into the fabric of the world. Through these acts of kindness, Arjun's perspective on life changed. He realized that true friendship, the kind Milo had given, wasn't meant to be hoarded. It was meant to be shared, passed on, multiplied. He began writing about his experiences, pouring his grief and gratitude into words, crafting stories of unconditional love between humans and animals. Soon his stories spread through Willowbrook, touching hearts, reminding people that compassion was not weakness but strength. And in each word he wrote, he felt Milo's presence guiding his pen, whispering softly, "Keep going, my friend." Years flowed by, and Arjun grew into a young man with dreams larger than Willowbrook. He left for the city to pursue studies, carrying memories of his small hometown, the oak tree, and most of all, Milo. Though the city was loud and unforgiving, he never forgot the lessons his friend had taught him: patience, loyalty, and love without conditions. In moments of stress, he closed his eyes and imagined Milo's steady gaze, his comforting paw on his chest. The memory steadied him, reminding him of where he came from and who he truly was. In time, Arjun's stories gained recognition. Publishers noticed his heartfelt tales, and soon his book, Friend from the Heart, was released. It was not just a story about a boy and his dog. It was a tribute, a living memory etched into paper. Readers wept, laughed, and found comfort in his words, realizing that love, once given, never truly disappears. Letters poured in from strangers who had also lost pets, thanking him for putting their unspoken feelings into words. And in every letter, Arjun saw reflections of his own journey, proof that Milo's love had traveled farther than he ever dreamed. On the day of his book's release, Arjun visited Willowbrook. He walked through the familiar fields, past the small market, and finally to the oak tree where everything had begun. Sitting beneath its branches, he placed a copy of the book against the roots and whispered, "This is for you, Milo. You'll live forever in these pages, in the hearts you've touched through me." A breeze rustled through the leaves, and for a moment, Arjun swore he felt the brush of soft fur against his arm, the silent reassurance of a friend who had never truly left. That night, under a sky glittering with stars, Arjun lay on the grass, staring upward with Shiro by his side. He thought of the boy he once was, lonely and searching, and the gift fate had given him in the form of a small trembling puppy. He thought of the laughter, the tears, the promises, the grief, and the healing. And as he closed his eyes, he whispered one final truth, the one Milo had etched forever into his soul. Friendship doesn't end. It lives beyond time, beyond distance. Bayo. As Arjun settled into adulthood, the lessons Milo had taught him continued to guide his every step. In his career as a writer, he found success, but he never allowed fame or recognition to blind him to the simple truths of life. Whenever he stood before an audience speaking about his work, he would often pause and share the story of a little dog who had once waited for him in the rain. People listened with teary eyes, because the way Arjun spoke of Milo was not like someone recalling a memory. It was like someone introducing a living soul who still walked beside him. The city, though grand, often left Arjun yearning for the simplicity of Willowbrook, the quiet fields, the scent of earth after rain, the oak tree where his bond with Milo had been nurtured. On weekends he would return home, spending time with Shiro, who had grown old himself. Just like Milo once did, Shiro became his steady comfort through long nights of writing. When Shiro passed peacefully in his sleep years later, Arjun was heartbroken once again, but this time he knew how to carry the grief. He whispered, "You're with Milo now. Run free together." Instead of drowning in sorrow, he let gratitude soften the pain, honoring Shiro's life by continuing his work at the shelter whenever he could. In his late 20s, life surprised Arjun again, this time in the form of a woman named Mira, who shared his love for animals. They met at an adoption drive, both reaching for the same puppy at the same time. Their laughter at the coincidence sparked a conversation that soon blossomed into something deeper. Mira understood Arjun's past, his scars, his devotion to Milo's memory. Unlike others who might have seen it as unusual, she admired it. "A heart that can love so deeply," she told him once, "is a heart that deserves to be cherished." Arjun realized then that companionship could take many forms: friendship, family, love. But at its core, it was always the same: souls choosing to walk together. When Arjun and Mira married, their wedding was a simple affair in Willowbrook, under the oak tree that had stood witness to so much of his life. Instead of grand decorations, they placed framed photographs of Milo and Shiro near the altar, as if inviting them to share the day. Guests wiped their eyes at the gesture, moved by the way Arjun kept his old friends alive in new chapters of his life. As vows were exchanged, a breeze rustled through the branches, and Arjun smiled softly, feeling once again that unseen presence of loyalty and love. Together, Arjun and Mira built a home filled with warmth, books, and, of course, animals. They adopted strays, each one carrying its own story of struggle and survival. Their house soon echoed with the patter of paws and the laughter of love. Whenever a new dog joined their family, Arjun would kneel down, stroke its fur, and whisper, "You're safe now." It was the same promise he had made to Milo years ago, a vow that became the foundation of his life. Mira often teased him gently, saying, "Your heart is half human, half paw print." And Arjun would laugh, but deep inside he knew it was true. Years later, when their first child was born, Arjun felt a new kind of love blossom within him. He held his daughter Ria in his arms and whispered stories of a friend she had never met, but would always know through him. As she grew, he introduced her to the oak tree, telling her how Milo had once pressed his paw to his chest, sealing a bond that carried him through life. "Papa," she asked once, "do you think Milo can see me?" Arjun's eyes misted, and he replied, "Of course, he's watching over us, wagging his tail in the sky." The years with Ria reminded Arjun that the best way to honor a friend is to pass on their love to future generations. He taught her kindness by encouraging her to help animals at the shelter. He taught her loyalty by showing her how Shiro and Milo had never left his side. And he taught her courage by sharing how grief could be carried with grace. In time, Ria too grew attached to the family's dogs, inheriting her father's gift of a heart open wide enough to love without fear. Arjun often watched her play with them and thought, Milo's spirit lives on in her laughter. As Arjun entered his 40s, his work had touched countless lives. His stories were translated into many languages, his name recognized by readers across the world. Yet, when asked about his greatest achievement, he always answered the same. It wasn't the books or the awards. It was meeting a trembling puppy on a rainy evening and realizing that true friendship can change the course of a life. His humility and honesty endeared him to many, but for Arjun, it was never about fame. It was always about love. Raw, simple, unshaken love. On his 50th birthday, Arjun returned once again to Willowbrook, this time with Mira, Ria, and their younger son Arav. The oak tree stood tall, older but steadfast, its branches stretching like arms that had sheltered decades of memories. Sitting beneath it, Arjun closed his eyes and let the sounds of the wind carry him back through time. The laughter of a boy, the bark of a puppy, the promises whispered into the night. He felt tears on his cheeks, not of sorrow, but of gratitude. "I've lived a good life, Milo," he whispered, "because you taught me how." In that sacred silence, Arjun realized something profound. Friendship from the heart never fades. It grows, transforms, multiplies, and lives on in every act of kindness, every life touched, every soul healed. Milo had not just been a companion for a lonely boy. He had been the beginning of a legacy of love that spanned generations. And as Arjun sat with his family beneath the oak, he finally understood that his story was never just his own. It was a continuation of a bond that began on a rainy night, when a boy opened his door and found not just a dog, but a lifelong friend. Time, with its quiet but steady footsteps, carried Arjun further into the autumn of his life. His hair, once dark and thick, now bore streaks of silver, and his body, once strong and tireless, moved with slower grace. Yet his heart was as vibrant as ever, glowing with the love he had carried all his years. He often said to his children, "Age only changes the body. The heart, when filled with love, stays young forever." And when he said this, he always thought of Milo, the eternal friend who kept his soul from ever growing old. By his 60s, Arjun had retired from his work in the city and returned to Willowbrook with Mira. Their house stood near the familiar meadows where he had once run with Milo, and the oak tree remained a faithful sentinel of his memories. The town had changed, roads paved, shops modernized, but the essence of Willowbrook, the quiet, the warmth, the heartbeat of nature, remained. And for Arjun, it was the perfect place to spend his later years, surrounded by the land that had once gifted him the friend who changed everything. Ria and Arav often visited with their own families, and the house rang with laughter of grandchildren. Arjun became a storyteller again, but this time for small ears and wide eyes. He would gather the children under the oak and begin, "Once, on a rainy night, I found the best friend I ever had." They would listen with awe, asking questions about Milo, about Shiro, about the shelter, about how one boy and one puppy had built a world of love. Arjun cherished those moments, because through his words, Milo lived again, his spirit fresh, his paw prints never fading. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with hues of gold and crimson, Arjun sat quietly under the oak, a notebook on his lap. His hands trembled slightly, but his mind was clear. He was writing what he knew would be his final book, a collection of reflections titled Paw Prints on My Soul. It wasn't meant for fame or readers across the world. It was meant for his family, a legacy of lessons and love. "So that when I'm gone," he whispered to the breeze, "they'll know how to carry love forward, just as Milo taught me." The oak rustled above him, as though blessing his words. In his writings, Arjun often spoke of grief not as an enemy, but as a teacher. "Grief," he wrote, "is love that has nowhere to go. But if you allow it, grief will guide you to transform that love into kindness for others. That is what Milo taught me, that no love is ever wasted, no loss ever meaningless." His words became a beacon for his children and grandchildren, who would often read them aloud, finding strength in the simple truths their father and grandfather had lived by. As his body grew frail, Arjun spent more time under the oak tree, sometimes dozing in the afternoon sun with a blanket and a book. People in town often saw him there and would smile, whispering, "That's Arjun, the man who loved his dogs like family." And Arjun never minded. In fact, he was proud, for if that was how he was remembered, then he knew he had lived a life that mattered. He once told Mira, "When I go, I don't want people to say I was a famous writer. I want them to say I was a good friend." In his late 70s, as the winter winds grew sharper, Arjun fell ill. The family gathered around him, their love a shield against the cold. He lay in bed, weak but smiling, telling stories even between coughs. Ria held his hand and whispered, "Papa, do you think Milo will be there, waiting for you?" Tears glistened in Arjun's eyes, and he whispered back, "Yes, my child. I believe he's been waiting all along." The thought gave him peace, and the fear of death no longer troubled him. For him, it was not an ending, but a reunion. On a quiet morning, as dawn painted the sky soft pink, Arjun closed his eyes for the last time. His breath slowed, his body rested, but his face carried a smile of serenity. Those around him wept, but in the stillness of that moment a strange comfort filled the room, as though an unseen presence had entered, wagging its tail, pressing a paw gently against Arjun's chest. His family believed then, with all their hearts, that Milo had returned to guide him across the bridge between worlds. The oak tree became the family's sacred place after Arjun's passing. Beneath its shade, they buried his final manuscript, along with a small collar that had once belonged to Milo. The spot became a symbol of love that endured through generations. Whenever the family gathered there, they felt a warmth that defied explanation, as if Arjun and Milo sat with them still, watching, smiling, reminding them that true friendship never ends. In the years that followed, Arjun's children and grandchildren carried his legacy forward. They ran the shelter with passion, adopted animals in need, and told his story far and wide. And so, the tale of a boy and his dog, of love found in the rain, of promises made beneath an oak, of grief transformed into kindness, became immortal. It was not just a story of one man's life, but a testament to what friendship from the heart can achieve. A ripple of love that spreads endlessly, touching lives long after the friends themselves have left the world. Years after Arjun's passing, Willowbrook remained the same quiet town, where the air smelled of earth and rain, and where the oak tree still stood tall, guarding the secrets of countless memories. But something had changed too. The shelter Arjun once supported had grown, expanded, and become a beacon of compassion for the entire region. His children, Ria and Arav, poured their hearts into it, naming it Milo's Haven, in honor of the small puppy who had once saved their father from loneliness. For them, it was not just a shelter, it was a continuation of a story, proof that love could ripple forward through time. Visitors came from nearby towns, even distant cities, to adopt dogs and hear the story behind Milo's Haven. Ria often stood at the entrance, telling families about her father's bond with Milo, how that love had shaped him, and how he passed it down to them. Tears often filled the eyes of listeners, many of whom left with not only a new pet but also a newfound understanding of loyalty and kindness. "This place," Ria would say softly, "is not built from bricks and wood. It's built from paw prints left on the heart." Arav, though quieter than his sister, worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ensuring every animal was cared for with dignity and love. He often carried with him a worn copy of Friend from the Heart, his father's first book, and read it to new volunteers so they would understand the soul behind their mission. "We're not just rescuing dogs," he told them. "We're honoring a promise my father once made to his best friend, a promise that lives through us now." Each time he spoke those words, the staff felt renewed purpose, as though Milo himself wagged his tail somewhere nearby, urging them forward. Ria's daughter, Anaya, grew up running through the shelter's halls, her laughter mixing with the joyful barks of rescued dogs. She inherited her grandfather's gift of storytelling, often sitting with the younger children and retelling the tale of Milo and Arjun with all the innocence of youth. "Do you know," she would whisper with wide eyes, "Milo wasn't just a dog. He was magic. He turned my grandpa's loneliness into love." The children would gasp and giggle, but in their hearts they carried the truth of those words. Through her, Milo's story remained alive, fresh and powerful. As the years passed, Milo's Haven became more than a shelter. It became a sanctuary of healing. People who had lost their pets came there not only to adopt but to find comfort in the story of Arjun and Milo. The oak tree, where Arjun's final manuscript lay buried, became a place of pilgrimage for many. Families tied ribbons to its branches in memory of their own pets, creating a rainbow of love that swayed in the wind. The tree, once a silent witness, now spoke in colors and stories, its roots intertwined with generations of friendship. Even in distant lands, Arjun's legacy found its way into hearts. His books, translated into dozens of languages, carried Milo's paw prints across oceans and continents. Readers from around the world wrote letters to Milo's Haven, sharing their own stories of love and loss, of pets who had healed them, of friendships that mirrored Arjun's. The staff often pinned these letters on a board in the shelter, a mosaic of gratitude and remembrance. Standing before it, Ria once whispered, "Papa, you never knew how far your love would travel." One summer, the town of Willowbrook hosted a festival in honor of Milo's Haven, celebrating compassion and the bond between humans and animals. Lanterns floated into the night sky, each carrying a message of love, each one symbolizing a soul remembered. As lanterns rose, Ria and Arav stood hand in hand, tears in their eyes, whispering the names of Milo, Shiro, and their father. The night shimmered with light, and in that glow, everyone felt the invisible presence of old friends running joyfully across the fields of eternity. With time, the children of Willowbrook grew up with Milo's story as if it were a fairy tale passed down from elders. Yet, unlike most fairy tales, this one was true. Teachers used Arjun's books in schools, encouraging students to write about their own friendships, human or animal. The story became part of the town's identity, woven into its culture. Tourists who came to visit the oak tree often left with a copy of Friend from the Heart, carrying the tale far beyond Willowbrook's borders. As Ria and Arav grew older, They often sat together beneath the oak tree, reflecting on the lives they had lived. "Do you ever think about him?" Ria asked once, her voice trembling. "All the time," Arav replied softly. "But when I look at this place, at the shelter, at the children laughing, I don't just think of Papa. I think of Milo, because he started it all." The two siblings sat in silence, letting the wind carry their unspoken gratitude into the branches above, where they believed both Milo and Arjun listened. The story of Arjun and Milo, passed through generations, became more than a family memory. It became a legacy etched into the soul of Willowbrook. And though time would one day fade names, buildings, and faces, the essence of their bond remained timeless. For friendship born from the heart cannot die. It only transforms, flowing into new lives, new bonds, new stories. And so, beneath the oak tree that had seen it all, the spirit of Milo wagged on forever, reminding everyone who passed that love is the only thing that outlives us all. Decades rolled forward, and Willowbrook changed once again. Technology crept into every corner of life, new buildings rose, and the town became busier than the quiet village Arjun had once known. Yet, in the midst of progress, there remained one constant: the oak tree and Milo's haven. Though generations had passed, the heart of the town still beat in rhythm with the story of a boy and his dog. For the people of Willowbrook, Milo and Arjun were not just part of history. They had become symbols, woven into the very identity of the place. Children who once heard the tale from their parents and teachers grew up and told it to their own. Once upon a time, they would begin, in this very town under this very oak tree, a boy found a friend who changed everything. Some children treated the tale as a bedtime story, others as a sacred truth, but all of them carried its lesson: to love fiercely, to stay loyal, to turn grief into kindness. These were the cornerstones of Willowbrook's culture, handed down like heirlooms. By now, the oak tree was more than just a tree. Scholars, poets, and artists visited it, writing about its legendary roots and leaves. They said its strength came from the love buried beneath, that the tree had absorbed Arjun's words, Milo's spirit, and the countless prayers tied to its branches. Some even called it the Tree of Friendship, a living monument that stood as proof of the bond between man and dog. And though science would never prove such claims, those who sat beneath its shade swore they felt something: warmth, comfort, an invisible presence pressing gently against their hearts. Milo's haven, too, had grown beyond what Arjun or his children might have imagined. No longer just a shelter, it became an international foundation, building homes for stray animals across the country. Volunteers from around the world traveled to Willowbrook to learn from its roots, to carry the philosophy of compassion to their own lands. In every new branch, the story of Arjun and Milo was retold, often painted on the walls in murals. A boy with bright eyes, and a golden dog running free through fields of hope. And so Milo, once a trembling puppy in the rain, became immortal in ways no one could have predicted. His name was etched in books, carved on plaques, whispered in prayers, and sung in lullabies. Parents told their children that Milo wasn't gone, that in every wagging tail, in every bark that welcomed love, in every paw print on wet earth, a piece of Milo lived on. The legend of Milo was not about one dog, but about every animal that found a home, every human who chose kindness, every act of love sparked by the friendship of one boy and his dog. One particularly stormy evening, when the rain lashed against Willowbrook as fiercely as it had on the night Arjun first found Milo, an elderly woman walked to the oak tree with her grandson. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, and the boy clung to her hand, frightened. But the woman bent down and whispered, "Do not fear the storm, remember the story? On a stormy night, love was born here." The boy looked up through teary eyes and smiled, his fear fading into wonder. And in that small moment, the storm no longer felt like chaos, but like a reminder of beginnings. As centuries blurred into each other, the tale of Arjun and Milo took on the shape of myth. In some versions, Milo was described as an angel in disguise, sent to heal a lonely boy's heart. In others, he was the spirit of the forest, choosing Arjun as his guardian. The details shifted, but the essence remained: loyalty, love, and the eternal bond between souls. And while historians debated the accuracy of the tale, the people of Willowbrook did not care for facts. They cared for the truth they felt every time they stood beneath the oak, every time they looked into the eyes of a loyal dog. Even in a world filled with noise and speed, where people often forgot to pause and cherish simple things, the story anchored hearts. Tourists who came for the legend often left with something more: a new dog adopted, a new promise made, a new spark of kindness ignited. And though the world had grown vast and complicated, Milo's story was always simple, always pure. It reminded humanity of what truly mattered: not wealth, not fame, but the quiet, powerful companionship that heals wounds words cannot reach. The oak tree lived on, and with it the tradition of tying ribbons in memory of lost pets. Some days hundreds of ribbons fluttered in the breeze, creating a song of colors against the sky. Families stood together, whispering names into the wind, believing with all their hearts that those names were carried across worlds to waiting companions. And somewhere, beyond human sight, one could imagine Milo running joyfully, welcoming each soul into the fields where no goodbye ever existed. And thus, through time unmeasured, the story of Arjun and Milo endured. From a rainy night to a legend, from a single friendship to a legacy that touched thousands, their bond lived on. For in every heart that dared to love selflessly, in every home that opened its doors to the lost and the broken, in every tear turned into kindness, Milo's paw prints could still be found. And as long as love remained in the world, the story of the friend from the heart would never end. Centuries moved like pages turning in a great book, and Willowbrook itself transformed into a bustling city. Towers of glass replaced cottages, electric lights outshone stars, and machines hummed where once the meadow sang with crickets. Yet, in the heart of this ever-changing world, the oak tree still stood. Older, mightier, and more revered than any monument, it had outlived generations. Its roots clung deeply to the soil that once felt Arjun's footsteps, and its branches still swayed as though they carried whispers of a boy and his dog. For those who paused in their rush to sit beneath it, the noise of the modern world faded, replaced by the faint echo of friendship. The story of Arjun and Milo by then had long blurred into legend. Scholars debated whether Arjun was real, or if Milo had truly existed. Some claimed the tale was symbolic, a parable about humanity's need for compassion. Others insisted that records of Friend from the Heart, Arjun's own book, were undeniable proof of its truth. But whether fact or fable, the people cherished the story as if it were their own. In classrooms, teachers still spoke of Milo's loyalty. In homes, parents still whispered the story to their children at bedtime. And in every telling, hearts softened, even in a world hardened by progress. In a society where machines grew more intelligent than people, and where life raced forward faster than breath, Milo's tale became a rare anchor. It reminded humanity of something machines could never give: warmth, loyalty, love, born without condition. For even in the future, where dogs were sometimes replaced by robotic companions, people still yearned for the touch of real fur, the bark that carried emotion, the eyes that spoke without words. And in their yearning, they returned again and again to the story of Arjun and Milo, the original bond that defined what it meant to truly connect. The oak tree became a global landmark, visited by millions. Pilgrims from across the world knelt beneath its branches, tying ribbons not only for pets, but for people they loved and lost. The air around the tree always carried color: red for love, blue for memory, yellow for joy, white for peace. No storm, no season, no blade could strip it of its dignity. Legend said that if you pressed your palm to its trunk and closed your eyes, You might hear the faint thump of paws running through grass, or the laughter of a boy chasing his friend. And though no one could prove it, those who tried swore it was true. Art, too, kept the memory alive. Painters rendered canvases of a golden dog standing proudly beside a smiling boy beneath a tree. Sculptors carved statues of Milo in plazas across the world, each one different yet carrying the same essence: strength, loyalty, love. Musicians composed songs about friendship eternal, some saying that the melody itself was inspired by the rustling of the oak leaves. And so, Milo's paw prints spread not only in hearts but in culture, shaping the very fabric of human expression. One day, far in the future, a child living in a city of lights asked his mother, "Is Milo real?" The mother, weary from work yet softened by the question, smiled and said, "Milo is as real as love. You cannot see love, but you feel it, don't you?" The boy nodded. "Then Milo is real too, because every time we love someone, we make him live again." That night, the boy dreamed of running through endless fields, a golden dog at his side, both free, both laughing in the sunlight. When he awoke, his heart carried warmth he couldn't explain. Even as centuries threatened to bury old stories, Milo's endured. The reason was simple. It was not just a story of one dog, one boy, or one town. It was the story of what it means to be human, to seek connection, to heal through love, to leave paw prints that last beyond a lifetime. No invention, no war, no change in civilization could erase it, because it belonged not to history but to the very essence of the human soul. Historians one day agreed on this much, that whether Arjun and Milo truly walked the earth or not did not matter. What mattered was the love their story carried forward. For the people who read it, who retold it, who lived by it, Milo had never left. He walked beside them in their pets, in their friendships, in the quiet moments when they chose kindness over cruelty. He was alive in every wagging tail, in every loyal heart, in every soul that knew what it meant to be a friend from the heart. And so, as time stretched into an endless horizon, and as generations came and went, the world carried Milo not as memory, but as truth. For love never dies, it only transforms, flowing from one life to another. And in that endless flow, Arjun's laughter and Milo's bark echoed forever, reminding all who listened that the greatest story ever told was not about kingdoms or conquests, but about a boy who opened his heart on a rainy night, and a dog who filled it with love eternal. As ages passed and the world entered eras beyond imagination, humanity reached the stars. Cities floated in the skies, colonies bloomed on distant planets, and machines worked side by side with people in harmony. Yet even in those distant worlds far away from Earth, the story of Arjun and Milo traveled with the settlers. Carried in digital archives, spoken in lullabies, painted on the walls of space stations, the legend stretched across galaxies. It seemed that wherever humans went, they took Milo with them, as if he was no longer just a dog of one town, but a guardian spirit for all who sought home. On one such distant planet, beneath a dome of glass protecting a new colony, children played with dogs that had traveled light years with their families. The animals, unknowing of their legacy, still carried the same wagging tails and shining eyes that Milo once had. A teacher, watching the children laugh, gathered them together and told them the old Earth story. "Remember," she said, "friendship is the only thing that can survive across worlds." And the children listened, imagining the golden dog racing among stars, paws glowing like constellations. The oak tree of Willowbrook, though rooted firmly on Earth, became a symbol, even in space. Colonists planted seeds of oak trees on other planets, calling them friendship oaks. Though not all survived in alien soils, those that did grew strong, carrying with them the legend of Arjun and Milo. When colonists tied ribbons on their branches, just as people had done on Earth, they felt connected to a heritage that spanned both time and distance. The simple act of tying a ribbon became a ritual across worlds, a way of saying, I remember, I love, I will not forget. With time, philosophers began to write about Milo as more than a dog. They spoke of him as an embodiment of loyalty, as the spirit of unconditional love, as the very essence of compassion that guided humanity when technology and ambition threatened to make them forget their hearts. In sacred texts of the future, Milo's name appeared beside saints, angels, and guides. He was not worshipped, but revered, a reminder that divinity could be found not in thunder or fire, but in the gentle eyes of a friend. Some said that in dreams, when the heart was pure and the mind at peace, Milo still appeared. People across centuries told the same vision, a golden dog running across endless fields of light, pausing only to look back as if beckoning the dreamer to follow. Many awoke with tears in their eyes, feeling comfort they could not explain. They whispered to themselves, "He is still with us." And so, even dreams carried his presence forward, uniting souls across generations. Artists of the future painted galaxies where paw prints glittered like stars, leaving trails across the heavens. Poets wrote verses about a boy and a dog whose love outshone empires. Musicians wove symphonies that rose like storms and fell like soft rain, capturing the moment Arjun first held Milo in his arms. And in every art form, the essence remained unchanged. A celebration of love that does not end, of friendship that walks beside us even when unseen. Those centuries turned into millennia, and the names of kings, rulers, and empires faded into dust, the tale of Arjun and Milo remained alive. It was not kept alive by books alone, but by actions, by every person who chose to open their heart to a lost soul, by every hand that reached down to lift the forgotten, by every act of love offered without expectation. In those actions, Milo walked again, and Arjun's promise was renewed. And so, the story was never truly about the past. It was about the present, about every moment when someone decided to be a friend from the heart. That truth gave the story its immortality. For while time erased monuments and memories, it could never erase love. Love, once given, became eternal, moving silently from one life to another, like a flame that refused to die. Milo's paw prints, though invisible to the eye, remained etched into the very fabric of existence. One evening on a faraway world, beneath two suns setting in golden light, a child asked her grandmother, "Do you think we will ever meet Milo?" The grandmother smiled, gazing at the horizon. "We already have," she said. "Every time you love without asking for anything back, every time you stand loyal beside someone, every time you wipe away another's tears, you meet Milo. He is not gone, my child. He is the friend who lives in every heart that dares to love." And in that truth, across all worlds and all time, the story of Arjun and Milo found its eternity. It was no longer just a tale of a boy and his dog. It was the living, breathing heartbeat of compassion itself. And as long as hearts continued to love, as long as loyalty continued to shine, as long as one soul reached for another, Milo's spirit would live on, forever running, forever waiting, forever reminding us what it means to be a friend from the heart.